Horses, they don't care about who's the boss. And I know you've been told they do. They don't need a dominant leader. Welcome, friends and fellow horse fiends. Thank you for continuing the ride with me as we change over to the Thinking Horse and Rider. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you find harmony, joy, and success in your riding. And I'm your host, Anna Fox of Equus Enlightened. This podcast is about training you to become the best possible partner for your horse. Because when you let go of perfection, quiet the pressure, and ride with presence, your horse has the space to show up as their best self too. Here, we'll dive into everything from mindful riding and compassionate training to the psychology of partnership and the little shifts that make a big difference. Together, we'll explore how to create more ease, connection, and flow in and out of the saddle. Grab your boots, take a deep breath, and let's step into a new way of riding, one where success means riding from the heart. So what are you waiting for? Come ride with me. Hey horse fiends, welcome back to the Thinking Horse and Rider podcast with me, your host Anna Fox of Equus Enlightened. We took a hot little break there because I always forget just how busy fall gets. If you're not listening in real time, it's currently October 2025, full on fall season. Between launching my course cohort, diving into the world of advertising and entrepreneurship, and just the busyness of life, time slipped away from me. But we're back, and today I want to share what's been happening inside Reconnect, Rebuild, and Ride with Heart, and explore a concept I call empathic discipline. Earlier this month, we had our first live call inside the Reconnect, Rebuild, and Ride with Heart cohort, and something really special happened. These riders realized almost instantly that they had so much in common. Not just the usual challenges we all face as horse lovers and the ones we talk about, but those sneaky undercurrents of anxiety, guilt, and perfectionism we don't always talk about. One rider shared how she lost 2 horses in 1 year. Now, for the first time, she's training a young horse of her own, and she wants to do everything right. But sometimes that desire gets in the way of connection, of joy. I think her exact words were, I overthink everything. I want to do it right. I want to be fair, but sometimes I just can't enjoy it. And everyone nodded because we've all been there. We talked about this crazy pressure. We talked about the silent expectations we place on ourselves. We talked about how social media comparison crushes joy. Then we flipped the script. We talked about reconnecting with our horses through play, not pressure. We talked about how to hold goals without holding on to the story that you or your horse are broken, behind, or not enough. That's really what this course is all about. Rewiring how we think and feel in the saddle, and maybe beyond. In that first call, we focused on my seed one, awareness. Because before you change your horse, you have to become aware of what's actually holding you back. And surprise, it's probably not your skill set or your fitness level. It's your mind, your nervous system, the way your thoughts spiral. Yeah, that. So we explored how to notice without judging, how to observe without labeling. Because when we attach a story to every thought, especially the negative ones, we stop ourselves from moving forward. Now we're stepping into seed two, what I call empathic discipline. Sounds like a contradiction, right? But it's not. Horses are empathic by nature. They communicate through energy and intention, not just movement, and obviously not speech, right? They feel, they notice, they respond. They are sentient. But, and this is key, they don't care about who's the boss. And I know you've been told they do. They don't need a dominant leader. They don't need two. That may be a whole other podcast story. But what you need to know for the purposes of this podcast and this course is that horses in herd environments, in the wild, free roaming herds, whatever, don't rely on a single leader. They don't even rely on two single leaders. Each member of the herd plays an important role and could become the leader at any given minute. So, for this system to work, what horses do need is clarity. They need everyone to be clear. They need everyone to be present. And they also need to have healthy boundaries. And it's okay to wonder how your horse feels. It's okay to be curious about their likes, their dislikes, their preferences. It's not anthropomorphizing because you can acknowledge your horse's emotional world without overthinking it, without making it your world, without comparing it to your world, and without collapsing your own emotions and your own emotional world. Because empathy doesn't mean absorbing someone else's feelings. It means recognizing them. You can't fully understand what your horse feels. You can't even do that with your partner, your child, or your friends. We can never see life through someone else's perspective. What you can do is create a felt response to their emotional state through your energy, through your presence, through what I call relational clarity. I see you, I'm listening, we can figure this out together. Or I'm here to support you. That to me is empathic discipline. It's not about being soft or letting your horse get away with things. It's about staying with yourself enough to stay with them. Here's where things get tricky, especially for perfectionists. We think we're being kind. We think we're being gentle, but without emotional discipline, empathy becomes something else entirely. It becomes codependence. And when you're stuck in that loop, you tend to fall into one of two camps. You over apologize, soften your boundaries, and under ask because you're afraid of hurting your horse, or you're afraid of the response you might get, or you overcorrect, push too hard, collapse into frustration because you're afraid of being ineffective or misunderstood. Neither of those is true empathy. They're just different aspects of fear talking, masquerading as compassion or frustration. What your horse actually wants is clean communication. Horses express their thoughts, they shift, and they move on if we allow them. In the herd, they would. But sometimes as humans, we keep the pressure on, we don't let up, and then the horses can't either. Because humans, we assign meaning to everything. We create stories, we hold grudges, even if they're subtle ones. Sometimes we punish without meaning to, not with tools, but with judgment. We label our horses difficult when they're just asking for clarity. The seed isn't just for the barn. It's a life skill too. Before I started doing Equus Enlightened full time, I was a 911 dispatcher for almost 20 years. And if you want to learn something about empathic discipline, this is a great way to do it in a short amount of time. Because sitting with someone on the phone during the worst moment of their life, or you might be on the other end of a radio with another first responder, and they're having a real emergency with someone else, and you have to stay calm. You have to be the one with the discipline. And it's not because you don't care. It's because if you spiral, everyone loses. And it's your job to get help. There was a lot of screaming and crying, but that stuff wasn't always the hardest to deal with. It was harder when people turned on me, when I was doing everything I could do to help, and they lashed out because they didn't know where else to put their pain. And I had to remind myself, this isn't about me. They're just redirecting their fear, their anger. And if I took it personally, I'd lose the clarity they needed from me most. And that's exactly what happens with our horses. We react to their reactivity. We get frustrated, scared, defensive. Now we've got two nervous systems in a tailspin. And that's when things get dangerous. We've all been there in that iffy situation where we're not sure what's going to happen next. It's not a fun place to be. But you can train yourself. You can train your brain. It's one of my favorite things to say. Train your brain to stay in your body and train it to be your best asset instead of it being your biggest competition. One of the ways we do that is by setting boundaries, clear boundaries. Our horses are great at that with their friends, and they'll show us too what their boundaries are if we're paying attention. But generally, we blow right through our horses' boundaries. Like we don't even pay attention to the fact that they're there. And that reminds me of another story about my dispatch career back in 2020 when the climate around law enforcement was very tense. I watched my social media feed fill up with posts attacking people that I worked with every day. And I will agree, there are bad people in every walk of life, in every job, everywhere on the planet. But the majority of people in public safety are doing it for the right reasons and are some of the best people you will ever meet. But my feed was filling up with terrible things about all of these people. And they weren't coming just from strangers. The posts were from friends, people who knew me, people who I respect, people who were my mentors. But they didn't have any experience in this field. And they got caught up in the emotional momentum, or they had an emotional reaction to something they saw. It was overwhelming and it was disheartening, and I didn't know what to do. At first, I wanted to defend myself and all my friends. Then I just wanted to get off social media. But ultimately, I chose to set a boundary. I didn't need to argue. I didn't need to absorb everyone else's emotional bullshit. And I didn't need to perform, didn't need to show them anything, didn't need to prove my values so that they would understand because they've never had experience in it. They're not going to understand, right? They cannot empathize with me. So I could understand where people were coming from without making their feelings mine to carry. That's empathic discipline. It's not about caring less. It's not about collapsing less. When you start practicing this type of discipline, really living it, something shifts. You stop trying to fix your horse. You stop trying to prove your worth. You stop mirroring every emotional spike in the environment, and you become magnetic, not because you're doing more, but because you're finally being more. And we know that modern humans have a really hard time just being, but you can be more present, more honest, more regulated, more you. Your horse doesn't need perfection. They need consistency, clarity, and someone who can stay with themselves long enough to stay with the horse. And that's what Reconnect, Rebuild, and Ride with Heart is here to teach. I've got a little experiment you can try today. I've also got a YouTube short you can watch that is an excerpt from the full video, which is in the course. And it's about teaching your horse to self-regulate. May also be about teaching you to self-regulate. But I want you to put your horse in the halter and the lead rope and step away. Hold the end of the lead rope. Leave enough slack so that it doesn't pull your horse forward. You want to be at least out of arm's reach. You don't want to be able to touch your horse. Just stand there. Breathe. Let them stand. Don't give them any cues, but don't ignore them either. Don't control them. Just sort of think, I'm here with you. We're chilling right here. I'm just being, and that's all I want you to do. Watch and feel what happens. Can your horse stay there, or do they feel like they need to move? Do they stay there for a little bit? And then how long is it before they shift? How long before you feel the need to step in? Because are you the one that wants to micromanage? This is about co-regulation and self-regulation. It's the beginning of empathic discipline. I'll link that video in the show notes. And if you're interested in discovering more, come check out Reconnect, Rebuild, and Ride with Heart. We begin with horses, but we don't stop there. This is a full nervous system reset for horse women who are done with perfectionism and ready to embody peace. The cohort's open now. It's live, it's intimate, and it's transformational. Check the show notes for details. And if your gut says yes, I hope you'll join us. Until next time, happy riding. Thanks for riding along with me today, friends. If you'd like to keep exploring these ideas, head over to equisenlightened.com, where you'll find free resources, including favorites from last season to help you start letting go of that perfectionism. Keep an eye out for my upcoming online course, Reconnect, Rebuild, and Ride with Heart. It's designed to guide you step by step toward the partnership you've always wanted. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. Give us all the stars on Apple if you're listening there, because it helps more riders like you find the pod. I'd also love for you to follow along on social media. You can find Equus Enlightened just about anywhere, but I will put links in the show notes for you. Until next time, ride with heart and give your horse and yourself a little grace.